Okay, welcome back to the Jiu-Jitsu Mindset. My name is Pete Deeley. My partner in crime, Professor Lucas Hubo, is out there teaching. He's a new dad with his son Gabriel. And as all new parents, he's likely exhausted right now and surviving off of submission coffee. So you don't have to be a parent to get your subscription. You can go to the jiu-jitsu-mindset.com and subscribe to our great coffee there. The divine has smiled on me week after week, and this week's no exception. I get a chance to talk to interesting and fascinating people about jiu-jitsu and other things. So when we talk to this gentleman, he's got not just a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but he's a healer on top of that. So what's the right way to refer to you, Dr. Professor Kris Martin? How do I get it right?
Titles, you'll just if I keep getting titles, my name's gonna be way too long. I'm cool with just Kris, but on the mats, I guess professor is fine if we want to get like the formalities there. The PT profession, physical therapy, we don't really go with like doctor too much. Like sometimes I put it in my emails just to seem professional when I'm talking with other physicians and other people. Is like, oh yeah, that guy's got some knowledge right there, But
Yeah.
I just try to keep it casual. Like you
Yeah.
can just call me Kris, that's fine.
Well, I'm going to honor your professor portion of that for this conversation. But I mean, you could be as nonchalant of the titles as you'd like. The truth of the matter is those things represent a lot of time and discipline and energy and passion, and they're not easy to achieve too. These are things that have required a lot of discipline. Often I ask, like, if you hadn't dedicated your life to jujitsu, what roads might you have gone down? But you're living multiple lifetimes compared to ordinary human beings. You have you're a black belt and a physician as well. But maybe you could talk about how those things either informed each other. Like, I think you came to jujitsu first before you headed in down the road of your becoming a doctor, but I don't know. I'm curious about how those things have rubbed up against each other or fit together in your life. Yeah.
I started jiu-jitsu when I was young, one of those like 22-year-old black belts. And, it's kind of around the same time I was like going through college. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I was kind of going to one profession and it was more like a psychology profession. I love working with people, I love how the mind works. And kind of as I was going through jiu-jitsu, I got, really taught by these when I was young, and then when my life changed, met the Machado brothers. John Machado is the guy that gave me my black belt.
Wow.
Him and the family are very close. Like John, the youngest of, a little confusing with the names. John Machado is the youngest of the five Machado brothers.
Okay.
He has his kids, and one of his kids, Jean, the youngest son, and I went to high school together. So
Wow.
I went and met them, and I was training with them, and ultimately he's the guy that gave me my black belt. They have since, I live in California. They have since moved to Texas and
Hmm.
are thriving, doing very well for themselves, and I love to see them do that. And I school.
Having just a little trouble with your audio there, Professor.
Just a little better.
That's much better. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. So yeah, I mean, I was going through with John Machado and all of them. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, my phone's been. I need to get a new phone. Was with them, and I got a lot of philosophy and education and talking, and he's kind of like a parent to me in some ways, and so I was
Hmm.
getting a lot of like life lessons, and I was like, psychology would be great to kind of get into. I'm on the mats and really learned a lot about myself physically and just how to move my body, how other people's bodies responded. I can feel like ranges of motion going through things, the joints. And we all feel that when like you're at the end of that armbar, people are going to tap. And when you practice it, you're like, okay, that's kind of where that joint is going a little far into that hyperextension. We need to, not keep doing that. And you're almost nervous to do it when you're actually trying to submit somebody.
Yeah.
Uh, And when I took a year off after college to just really get some experience in psychology, to go that route, to pursue and get some experience for a master's program, I had an injury myself, did a little physical therapy, and I was like, oh man, you mean I can work in a profession where I can actually like touch people's bodies, move their joints, and but like instead of trying to like break the joints,
Right, right. Yeah.
like I can heal them. I was like kind of like that idea because I had a lot of buddies, as you train, and I'm sure we all kind of know this is like, oh, why isn't so and so here? Like had a little injury on the mat or something, and they've taken some time off to rest and to heal. And it's like, oh man, I was really looking forward to training with them because they do this one thing like spider guard or whatever, and I have
Yeah.
really when I wanted to work on that or blah blah blah. And it kind of bummed me out as I was coming up through the ranks because injuries happen, and sometimes people just quit.
Yeah.
It happens, and I was like, man, now I'm in a profession, or I'm seeing a profession I want to do, and I can get people back on the mats. This is like the blend of both worlds for me. So
Yeah.
I was great. I'm already doing this. I can see the future I want to go down, and that's kind of how I started getting into that road there.
Yeah, that will certainly from I was a business plan, like to be in the jiu-jitsu community is a fertile territory for to
Yeah.
develop the business plan. And when you began your journey in this road towards healing people, was the journey of looking to learn how to potentially break a joint and to all the rest of it, did it give you, relative to your classmates, a different approach or understanding of the body that you wouldn't have achieved if you hadn't have been so intimately familiar with, hey, if you the joint has ranges,
Yeah.
and past those ranges we're in dangerous territories. And also as an athlete, I think non-athletes approach like, well, what does 100% really mean? Sometimes I think athletes respect the idea that, well, I want to get at it as soon as possible, whereas I think sometimes non-athletes want to delay the return to movement longer than, and maybe that's my own experience or not. But I'm just curious if, as you looked around the people who were with you, did you have a different perspective for all of that work you did?
I think as far as like the perspective of how I was able to handle the body, in physical therapy school, you learn how the joints move, what angles are appropriate at, and you get to these end ranges, and everybody's got a slightly different end range. You heard of the like I'm double jointed, and like, you
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of see elbows bending the wrong way, and I was like, oh my gosh! But in physical therapy school, you learn to feel that range of motion because some people are really stiff after an injury, and you need to move those joints a little bit to kind of help it. So I was like, I know how the elbow feels if I need to really crank on it. So I'm pretty comfortable here. And maybe some of my classmates
hmm
were on one or the other side. They're like, oh, I'm really hesitant. Like I might break their elbow. I'm like, you're not going to break it. You're fine.
yeah,
Or
right,
some people are kind of like the spazzy white belts. They're learning this and they're just like, they're cranking. Okay, hey, chill, go slow, go slow. Like, so
yeah,
I saw the crossover there and I kind of I would laugh and, just there's a little bit of that teaching moment too. Same thing on the mats, right? You're like, oh, am I going to like break their arm if it's fully extended? You're like, no, the person, you just communicate and have that communication. And that's really important, I think, when you're working with somebody and doing hands-on physical therapy and handling someone's joints. They have an injury, they're fearful of it, but it's ultimately okay. And I think to your second question about athletes and non-athletes, it's like I want to get back on the mats as soon as possible, and some
hmm
people like I'm okay just waiting and then kind of doing that. I mean that's right now I'm in the middle of a sports residency program.
yeah,
Residencies like you get your physical therapy license, you're a physical therapist, and afterward you can choose to do a residency program and specialize in something, just kind of like other
sure,
doctors do. They're like, I'm a neurologist, a dermatologist, etc. Like um, I wanted to just be like working around athletes, getting their mindset because jiu-jitsu is full of it. It's the same exact thing. It's like I injure myself, I want to be able to go play soccer immediately. I sprained my ankle, can I go run on it? I was like, well, let's have a conversation about that. And I'm not like and I think my business partner Diana Wang, Dr. Diana
Mm.
Wang, who you've gotten the chance to talk with, if
Yeah,
you haven't listened to that episode, I recommend you go back and listen to that one.
indeed.
uh, she talks a lot about that too, where it's like you have to really figure out how to talk to that person in front of you because we don't like to say like there's a black and white unless
Yeah,
it's this really big thing. But a lot of physicians will say, don't go to the mats back on the mats for 3 months, And I hate hearing that because it's like,
Yeah.
oh, let's just have you just sit and not do anything in a chair for 3 months and just
Yeah.
rest.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But that's not going to do any good. Like your body needs to move, but it needs to move in the right way. You got to be smart about it, and you're just like that person in front of you. If I if I give you an inch, are you going to take it a mile,
Right. Right.
right? Or are you like, no, okay, if you tell me to move an inch, I'll move it an inch. Like I don't
Yeah.
need to do that. So it really is just important to see that person in front of you and have those conversations and get it in people's heads.
Yeah. That makes a lot. I mean, I have uh, the opinion that of all the athletic activities that I've done, an, a requirement to be honest in jiu-jitsu that's different than other athletic pursuits. And what I mean by that is the tap, I think, is you can't be lying both ways. Like if you're tapping too early with things, which I think there is such a thing as like to, you have to allow the position to be expressed. However, if you're letting things go too far, that's a dishonest uh, point of view also, and that's how people I think get hurt. I think it was Hiram Gracie came through our school once, and we are talking about injuries, and he said to us, he says, if you're injured, chances are it was, you played a huge part, and it's probably your fault. In fact, I think is what he said. And for me, how I translated that, I was a white belt at the time when I heard him say that, was that. There's a requirement here to be honest about where you are relative to your own capabilities. If you're exploring too far where that elbow goes, you have to accept the fact that you're going to get injured. And I would imagine in the healing discipline there that you got to call people to that same honesty of like this is what I'm assessing in terms of what I'm seeing, but can you honestly tell me like how you feel and all the rest of it? Being an athlete who lied to lots of doctors along the way that, hey, I'm fine, don't worry about it, to get back to doing what I was doing without an argument, uh, I can attest to what it's like to be a dishonest patient.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head like right there because like some people are dishonest and they're like, no, I'm fine, I do this.
Mhm.
But I also find in addition to that, or as like a tangent, some people just don't know.
Yes, that's different, right?
So like yeah, you could be dishonest or you're ignorant, like you just don't really know what's going
Yeah,
on. I'll
yeah,
have some people tell me like, and it's really common. It's like, with other like kind of non-athlete patients. It's like, oh, I have pain. I have pain with this pain that I'm doing this, and I'm like,
yeah, yeah,
I'm trying to bring the pain down, but you're telling me that all the stuff we've been doing is painful. Now, either you're dishonest or you just don't know.
right.
Dishonest, I feel like you'd tell me about it, but like, let's dive into that a little bit. And they're like, well, it hurts, but and I'm like, how much does it hurt? And they're like, oh, it's like a 1 or 2 out of 10. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God. You're like, come on.
Yeah,
But then they don't know that like it's okay to work through that a little bit. Like
sure.
there's elements of it, and where again, we're not black and white, we're a little gray. It's like we need to make sure you uh
Oh,
that
yeah,
level.
I lost you for a little bit.
Oh no, sorry.
That's okay. So you're talking about the black and whiteness and
Yeah, the gray.
the gray. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, sometimes people are just ignorant. And they don't, people don't know what their joints are capable of on the mat, so they accidentally test it, and it becomes a problem, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like out of that honest dialogue between you and yourself, you and your, in your case, the patient, but you and your training partners is where you grow in that what if one is painful, we recognize that, well, one is actually something very tolerable. And, in between 1 and 4, there's a lot of things for you to learn that's worth it for you to be uncomfortable at that level. But if you're always living in 8, 9, and 10, something is definitely wrong that needs to be fixed, and we got to go back and figure that. I mean, I know that your business focuses on the jiu-jitsu community. Is there any comment to be made about the difference between jiu-jitsu athletes and other athletes, or is it more or less the same dynamic, just a you know, different discipline? Like, are we different as a community than the others?
Yeah, I mean, is the brain different than other people? I think sometimes like that. Yeah, I think like athletes are really similar in a lot of ways, but there's something a little bit special about jiu-jitsu. People are like almost more addicted to jujitsu.
Yes.
Get this like especially early on, but like you just have this connection to it that you yeah, maybe you see it in other sports. I'm trying to think of some others right now, and certainly people are passionate about their sport. But
Yes. Right.
I played a lot of sports, and I just feel like doing jujitsu, there's just a passion about that. Whether it's like really, you're just, I mean, they talk about hugging other people, and people don't get to do that as you get older, and
Hmm.
the connection and how important that is. I'm like, well, you're kind of just grappling and touching another person for 5 minute rounds, whatever, how long your rounds are. And it's
Right.
like a lot of physical connection to somebody. Maybe that's the addictive part. Maybe it's the mental chess that we talk
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
that's really addicting to it. And, the back and forth, the competitive out is like, it is really fun. I mean, it's different. I love soccer. I've played it for a long time, and I think it's great. But it's like different than just kicking a ball and then watching things.
Yes. Yes.
You're constantly involved in jiu-jitsu. There's no non-moment where you shouldn't be paying attention to something because it's really just a pretty high level thing.
Yeah, neurologically, there's so much going on that requires, there's so much problem solving on the conscious level. I mean, for my jujitsu journey, trying to move things from my lizard brain to my executive function is like the biggest challenge, like, can I think about what to do next? Um, there's that trust factor that I think is different in the sport training with somebody that allow, you have to trust that they will trust your tapping and um, I as people explore this, some of us put our toe in the competitive waters and others don't feel like it's important. You probably, deal with athletes across that spectrum too. Do you have an opinion about the role of the competition experience in jiu-jitsu development? Do you feel like it's helpful or important, or is it totally an individual's like choice and it doesn't matter? Like, where do you come down on that question?
Yeah, good question. I mean, shoot, the athlete in me says like everybody should compete, right? It's
Yeah.
just kind of like, you're doing this martial art, you're doing it for various reasons. I mean, I think a lot of people try to do it for self-defense in
Hmm.
some kind of form, whether you're like
Sure.
the traditional self-defense or you're doing barambolos or whatever, you're still like you're learning how to move your body and defend yourself. And I think having a competitive nature to like your training and to actually test it is important. Like,
Yeah.
yes, you're in the training room or like you're on the mats and you're going and you actually do go 100% with people and it's like you feel that live testing. But
Right.
then when you get these nerves on the mat, on a competition mat, and you're like, oh, I'm pumped up. And if someone like kicked down your door, you'd probably have some similar
Yeah.
nerves like that,
Yeah.
right? You're like, oh, I'm fired up and I need to be able to react and do what I need to do. It's like, it's not the same thing as like casually rolling in after work and training with people.
Yes. Yeah.
Similar intensity of like maybe training, but not like the nerves that come with that. And then I think that's important because you need to learn how to control your body.
Yes.
Do you need to be, like the best champion of all time? Like, no, but I think, having some local tournaments where maybe there's
Hmm.
some lower stakes are pretty good and challenging other people. And, competition's not always that scary. I've been a referee. I've been a medic for all these tournaments, and yeah, injuries happen, but there's also a lot of injuries that don't happen, and people are really great. They have a good time, and I think it's just good for people to get out there. Now, it does depend on the situation. Now, me speaking as a physical therapist, it's like I really want to do competition, Kris. What do you think? Well, we got this, we got this, we got this. You can't do that. Do you think that's important for your competition? Well,
Right.
yeah. I mean, okay. Well, I'll tell you about your likelihood of injury and maybe your
Yeah.
risks. It's
Right.
ultimately up to you if you want to go do it, but
Yeah.
I just think it's a good thing to be competitive and go out there and do it for everybody, at least maybe once if you've never done it, or like regularly throughout the belt cycle in life.
Yes. Yes. Right. Yeah. Compete at every belt. Yeah. Type of thing. Yeah. I'm of the mind that it's a worthwhile experience, no matter whether you've lived a life as an athlete and you want a game day, like I think that there's value there. Or if you've never been that, to just have the experience of false anxiety. I mean,
Yeah,
I think that there's when I go and do whatever tournaments I do, nobody cares what the outcome is but me and my opponent. And other than that, it's a very small set of concerns. People will be happy for me in some way, shape, or form. If I
yeah,
win, they're not going to care if I lose. However, my internal experience is always one of trying to figure out how to master myself. You've done jujitsu for a long time, and I
yeah.
feel like you've had a lot of competitive experiences. Do you have do you have one that pops to mind if I'm like, what's your most memorable role or your most memorable fight or competition?
Man, I wish I would have competed more. I still plan on competing. I was really trying to focus on the whole doctorate thing because
Sure.
want to make sure that's going well. But I really do want to compete. I'm getting back into jiu-jitsu as my residency is kind of ramping down. But like one, I think like generally on the mats when I was a blue belt and like going through people that I was training with, it was that old school mentality of like, don't give up any position, like
Hmm.
that you fight, you go through that, you like don't, like mess this guy up. And like it was like old school Brazilian mindset of like just not like I mean exaggerating a little bit, but it's like kill, kill, kill. And it was like,
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, man, you went after it. And I remember just as a 16-year-old like blue belt going against some grown men in competition, both like in an actual competition. I remember there was like one of my first matches ever. There was like some ex-Marine
Oh
guy
my
is like
goodness.
5'6" and I was like 5'10". And I was like, this guy's kind of a smaller guy. I think I can take him. But then like he just kind of opens up his gi and he's just like he's chiseled all the way down to his toes. And I was like, oh man, I'm athletic, but this guy kind of looks like he's gonna throw me to like through the roof. And so I
Right.
remember just having a battle with that guy, and then
Yeah.
I always kind of challenge myself afterward, even in the training room. I remember there's a guy, he's like 6'3". His name is Josh, big like just long arms,
Yeah.
strong guy, and I'm just like, dude, how do you have this build? And he just would spider guard me like I'm flying through the air. I get back up on my feet. I never get on my back, but he's just throwing me around, and I'm just like trying my hardest, like cardio's going. I'm muscling him because he's a bigger dude. And I'm a big guy too. I'm like 220 pounds. I'm like
Yeah.
pushing him and he's pushing me. And I'm like,
Yeah.
man, like those matches where you just have like big guys you're going against,
Yeah.
similar size or a little bit bigger, just going after it. It's like I always remember those a lot.
Well, yeah, for me, I think that the competition has the opportunity to reveal things to yourself, things that were there you didn't know they were there. Because sometimes, you go fight that chiseled Marine and there's probably like some life differences too, like not which matter, particularly in the combat sports. And then I also think it can change you, where you thought you were one way, but actually now you're going to behave differently, and I think in good ways. And given how much time you've been around jiu-jitsu and how you've got to observe its role in people's lives, do you have any favorite story? I'm sure you have many of sort of how jiu-jitsu had a positive impact on either a fellow classmate or a student or just somebody in your constellation of jiu-jitsu people.
Yeah, I mean, there's like there's the good and like the cliche jujitsu saved my life, and I love those stories because it
Right.
really helps people out, and I love it. And they get the jujitsu saved my life,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
EKG, heart rate kind of thing. Love that, and I'm happy for people. I think for about 3 years, I was teaching at UCLA as the club jujitsu instructor, and I took it over from a gentleman named Jimmy Tang, and I passed it down and. During that time, UCLA really rigorous academically, really smart kids, and like these guys probably and girls are probably really spending a lot of time indoors doing this stuff and
Yeah.
gifted academically. But what I saw a lot was they were very clumsy with their bodies and
Mm,
talk about spazzy white belts. Like, I mean, it's just a room full of white belts, maybe a couple blue belts.
right.
And like, it's just like someone who just opened their gym, a new academy in a new city. And it's just like you're recruiting people and they've never heard of jiu-jitsu. It's like that.
Yeah.
They're all spazzy. They're all in their young, to like they're in their 20s
Right.
and they're just like bloodthirsty, just going after it. And I was like, man, this is an interesting experience. Like just all the same age demographic, all same skill level. Maybe some people had a little wrestling, but the memorable ones for me were like the people that were very timid, that
Yes.
didn't know anything. There were people that were like claustrophobic, and I was like, "You signed up for jujitsu? Like,
Yeah.
people are literally trying to stuff you into the ground." Like, yeah, I'm like, "Well, we'll prepare for it." And some people had panic attacks, and but the students that really blossomed like that were so introverted,
Yeah. Yeah.
quiet, that really kind of, you know, they you just people like couch potatoes, and they started going up against the farmer like wrestler that was doing it, and like they can kind of hold their own a little bit,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like, damn, I like to see that. That is like that's just like let's go. And I think I remember there was there was a guy in like the 90s. His name was Holeta.
Hmm.
He physics guy, really smart, but black belt, and just physically not very strong. But
Hmm.
and I think he probably was, but he also like they talk about used his knowledge of mechanical engineering and physics to do that. And they have the Holeta sweep, and he was going against Saulo Ribeiro, and that's why it was one of the things that made him really famous. But it was like just those like nerdy guys making it big and doing well. I was like, oh man, that's like what I'd love to see. And I just had my story of like, yeah, me and that Marine were just going at it, brawn, just going at it, but really like stepping back and thinking about how technical people can
Yeah.
be and really seeing how that shines in jiu-jitsu is like what I wish I would have done earlier on. I'm
Yeah.
still happy with my journey, but like now I'm trying to do that. And I was like,
Sure.
oh man, I should have been technical. These guys I were teaching, they get it. They're smart and they're really going after it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I some of the pleasure that I have in observing like our gym is the kids because like the what you just said, Professor Lucas will often talk about this that you some people need to have their assertiveness ratcheted up. They need to be a little more
Yeah.
aggressive in the world, and then there are other people that need to have it tamped down. They're a little too much that way. But most of us are in some, needing to ratchet it up on some days and tone it down on other days. And with the kids, I see that being played out in very dramatic ways. Kids that might, not have a lot of confidence, like, oh, they're intimidated in the world, and then they recognize that, hey, I'm not as fragile as I think I am, and that physical uh, confidence then becomes a metaphor for other ways in which they are confident in parts of their lives, which I love. And I think that follows us throughout our entire life, that the body is a good mechanism by which to teach the spirit and the mind. Like you discipline the body, it often echoes in the discipline of your intellectual pursuits and in your professional pursuits, your spiritual pursuits, and so on and so forth. Um, well, that's so you're still, uh, as somebody at my age, you look very young to me, so you got a long road ahead of you still if competition and being able to adjust the game to the instrument you have at the time, I think is one of jiu-jitsu's gifts to us, right? Like it can keep it interesting, for a long time. When you think about, because you have your black belt and you have these experience already, do you see yourself more as the teacher as you go forward here, or do you see yourself equally as the student when it comes to jiu-jitsu? Like where's your mindset when it comes to that?
I mean, always the student, right? Always
Yeah,
trying to learn more because in the time that I've been a little bit less involved in the jiu-jitsu community, a little bit more in the PT community, just as
sure.
like life has shifted. Oh man, like I'm okay at leg locks, but like there's people that are really good at them,
Yeah,
and there's just the game that's different. I'm like, oh, I want to learn that. I want to just know how to use it and like maybe not necessarily include it in my game, but how to kind of work my game around that.
yeah,
So I'm just always impressed by how much the jiu-jitsu game evolves over time and
yeah,
it changes. So I'm always a student, but I still, because of my experience, I'm always going to be the teacher. I still have like, I was trained in the old school way of like doing things and I use my game a lot that way still, but I sprinkle in new things. And so
yeah,
I'm always kind of teaching people like, yes, love the new school games. It's definitely effective. You can do this stuff, but then there's also like the basics of things that are never going to go away, and those are still important too. Like I don't think that there's something that's necessarily not useful in jujitsu when you're training on the mats.
right,
I think
right,
that there's always something, and so everybody can be the student. And I mean, honestly, in a sense, like if there's someone I'm teaching,
right,
there's like they teach me stuff. I'm like,
sure.
you've been doing this and practicing this. I'm like, show me. I mean, shoot, I haven't been here in a while. Like, show me this thing or these
Yeah.
details you learned, and then I talk with other people. It's like it's really just it's fun. Yeah, no matter how old I think you get, it just you can constantly be the student and learn something fun.
Yeah, without a doubt. I was talking to one of my favorite human beings, this guy, Professor Jason Hawkins, and he's been a martial artist his entire life, has owned an academy for, I don't know, something like 30 years or something. It's been a big, big part of his life. And we were having this conversation about just the inevitable changes that accompany any art, any discipline, and it looks a certain way for 10 years and then it changes. And he's noticed a lot of wrestlers kind of coming in. having a big impact on jiu-jitsu for, variety of reasons,
Mhm.
and how that feels different than what, he kind of was used to training with. Anyway, my point being is that I think if you have that perspective that this is an evolving thing, I'm an evolving person, and this is an evolving space, and every time, it's like you can't step into the same river twice type of idea, it can be with you, it can be with you forever. Well, I mean, I've enjoyed getting a chance to have this conversation with you, and like I said, I'm grateful that you took some time with me.
Oh, I mean, likewise. Yeah. Thank you for, having the space to do this, and hopefully people like listening to little physical therapy and jiu-jitsu talk. And, it's a good time, Pete. Thank you very much for having me.
And if people want to come and find you, like they may want to be aware of your practice, and what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, we're on Instagram. We're at openmat_physio. You'll see a picture of myself and Dr. Diana Wang
Hmm.
there, and we've got lots of videos and freebies to educate people. And we love just being a part of the community and talking. So don't feel shy to just shoot us a little message and ask questions. It's just like we're here. I was doing it a lot. I'm going to get back into it, but I did this like White Belt Wednesday thing, and
Nice.
I stole that name from Reddit. So like, don't
Yeah, yeah.
don't sue me, but just I'll get a lot. I'll do like an Instagram live, and just people come into the chat, they ask questions, and I'll just answer them. And I just want people to get, a little smarter about their bodies on the mats, and stay on the mats, and keep training, keep learning, teaching other people, so that we evolve, we grow, and we get smarter.
And what city is your practice in California? Where are you guys at?
Well, we are located in Los Angeles, but we do our work mostly kind of like online, just because
Okay, okay.
Jiu-Jitsu is all over the place,
Yeah,
and we will do like telehealth. We do some like in-person stuff in LA. Like we'll drive over to an academy and do some workshops. Or Diana's been flying around the world doing some
yeah.
workshops and stuff like that. So we'll definitely do that, but we do majority of our work online, telehealth, Zoom.
Okay, that's awesome. All right, Professor Dr. Kris Martin, thank you so much, and I hope you come back another time. We'll talk some more.
Of course, thank you, Pete, so much.